Welcome to this quiet journey through time, back to a summer day in 1981, when the world watched a young woman step into a fairy tale that was already beginning to fray at the edges. Close your eyes, settle into comfort, and let yourself drift as we explore the hidden moments, the small human details, and the quiet truths behind one of the most watched events in history. This is a story about silk and secrets, about nerves and tradition, about a dress that weighed 20 pounds and a heart that carried so much more. Breathe slowly, in and out. Let the weight of the day fall away from your shoulders. Let's begin our story. The fragile beginning. Before there were cheering crowds, before there were cameras and processions and global broadcasts, there was doubt. There was a young woman, barely 20 years old, standing at a threshold she wasn't entirely sure she wanted to cross. Diana Frances Spencer had discovered something that made her heart sink. In the weeks before her wedding, she learned that Charles had commissioned a special gift for someone else. Not for her, a bracelet. A beautiful, carefully chosen bracelet, crafted for Camilla Parker Bowles. The woman who had been part of Charles's life long before Diana entered the picture. Imagine that moment, the weight of it, the confusion. Diana held this knowledge close, turning it over in her mind, wondering what it meant. She considered, very seriously, calling off the wedding. The entire wedding. Can you picture it? The cathedral already booked, the invitations sent, the world waiting. And yet, in her heart, a voice asking, should I do this? But when she confided in her sisters, they told her something that felt both comforting and crushing at once. They said it was too late to chicken out. The machinery had already been set in motion. The wheels were turning. To stop now would be unthinkable. And so she made a choice. Or perhaps the choice was made for her. She would continue forward, into the light, into the spectacle, carrying this small, sharp doubt with her like a stone in her shoe. This is where our story truly begins. Not with certainty, not with unbridled joy, but with a young woman deciding to walk forward anyway. Let yourself breathe deeply. Let these images settle softly in your mind. There's no rush. We have all the time in the world. Diana and Charles had met only around 13 times before their engagement. 13 times. Count them slowly in your mind. 13 conversations. 13 moments to decide if you want to spend your entire life with someone. 13 chances to see if your hearts align. For most people, 13 meetings might cover a few weeks of dating. Dinner here, a walk there, a movie, a quiet evening. But for Diana and Charles, these 13 encounters were scattered across months, carefully orchestrated, often with others present. There was little privacy, little chance for the deep, unguarded conversations that reveal who someone truly is. And yet, from these 13 brief windows, a decision was made, or rather, a decision seemed inevitable. When the engagement was finally settled, it remained a secret for 3 weeks. 3 long weeks of knowing, but not being able to tell the world. 3 weeks of whispering behind closed doors, while courtiers and royal staff began the intricate choreography of planning a state wedding. Imagine keeping such a secret, walking through your daily life, knowing that soon everything will change, but unable to share it freely. The engagement ring hidden, the future tucked away, waiting for the moment when privacy would dissolve entirely into public property. Behind the scenes, there were whispers of a different kind. Courtiers exchanged glances. Senior members of the royal family quietly shared their concerns. They worried, in the careful way that people in positions of power worry, that perhaps Diana and Charles were not well matched. Perhaps this was moving too quickly. Perhaps the differences between them, in age, in temperament, in experience, were too vast. But by then, stopping it felt impossible. The announcement would be made. The world would celebrate. And the momentum of history itself would carry them forward, whether they were ready or not. The fairy tale already felt fragile before the day even arrived. But fairy tales, once begun, have a way of demanding their ending. Breathe slowly, in and out. Let the weight of the day fall away from your shoulders. The night before. The night before the wedding, Diana stayed at Clarence House. Not at Buckingham Palace, not in some grand impersonal suite, but at Clarence House, a place that felt perhaps slightly more human in scale. She was surrounded by her sisters, by her attendants, by the people who had known her before she became Lady Diana Spencer, bride of the Prince of Wales. They tried to help her steady her nerves, to keep her grounded as the enormity of what was about to happen settled over her like a heavy blanket. Sleep must have been difficult that night. How do you sleep when you know that tomorrow 750 million people will be watching you? When you know that every step, every word, every expression will be recorded, analyzed, remembered. Picture her there, in a quiet room, as London settled into twilight outside. The streets already filling with people who had come to camp out overnight, determined to secure a good view. The city itself holding its breath. And then, in the midst of all this anticipation, a gift arrived from Charles, a signet ring, and with it, a handwritten note. The note told her he was proud of her. It encouraged her to look him in the eye and knock them dead. It was a small gesture, a private moment in a very public countdown. Charles, in his own way, trying to bolster her confidence, trying to remind her that she could do this, that she would do this. Did the note comfort her? Did it ease the knot of anxiety in her chest? Or did it simply remind her of how far she was about to step outside her own life, into something vast and unknowable? We can only imagine, but the note exists in history, a fragment of tenderness before the spectacle began, the dress under pressure. Now, let us turn our attention to the dress that everyone wanted to see, the dress that had to be kept secret at all costs, the dress that became, in many ways, as famous as Diana herself. Designers Elizabeth and David Emanuel were given the commission of a lifetime. Create a wedding dress for a future princess. Make it spectacular. Make it unforgettable. But above all, keep it absolutely secret. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, they worked in a locked room, a room with curtains always drawn. Code names were used when discussing the project, even internally, to evade the relentless press who were desperate for any scoop, any detail, any leaked photograph. But here's something most people don't know. the Emanuels secretly made a backup wedding dress, an entire second gown, crafted in case details of the real one leaked to the media. They couldn't risk someone publishing sketches or descriptions that would ruin the surprise. So they made two, just in case. The backup dress was never used. It remained hidden, a ghost dress, a wedding that never was. The real dress was a masterpiece of silk taffeta, embroidered with 10,000 mother-of-pearl sequins and pearls. It had puffed sleeves and a fitted bodice, and a train that stretched 25 feet behind Diana, like a river of ivory silk. Woven into the fabric was something ancient and precious, antique lace that had once belonged to Queen Mary, royal history literally stitched into the gown. Generations of monarchy pressed into delicate threads. It was a way of connecting Diana to the long line of royal brides who had come before her, of making her part of a continuum that stretched back through centuries. But as the wedding day approached, a problem emerged. Diana was losing weight, rapidly. The stress of the engagement, the constant scrutiny, the pressure of becoming one of the most photographed women in the world. It was taking a physical toll. Her waist, which had measured around 29 inches when the dress was first designed, had shrunk to approximately 23.5 inches by the wedding day. That's more than 5 inches lost in a matter of weeks. The Emanuels had to constantly alter the dress, pinning it tighter here, taking in seams there, racing against time to ensure that on July 29th, when Diana walked down the aisle, the dress would fit her perfectly. Imagine the pressure, not just on Diana, but on the dressmakers. Every stitch had to be perfect, every measurement exact, and their client was quite literally changing shape before their eyes, her body responding to stress in ways that even the most skilled designers couldn't fully control. The finished dress weighed around 20 pounds. 20 pounds of silk, lace, sequins, and dreams. It sounds romantic until you imagine wearing it, carrying that weight on your body for hours. Through a ceremony, through photographs, through endless standing and sitting and smiling. This was not just a dress. This was armor. Beautiful, delicate armor. Rest your eyes. Let the images form softly, like watercolors bleeding into paper. Small accidents, big nerves. Even with all the planning, all the precautions, all the carefully choreographed details, things still went wrong. Small things, human things, the kind of accidents that happen when nervous hands try to manage perfection under impossible pressure. Shortly before leaving for the cathedral, Diana accidentally spilled perfume on the dress. Her perfume. A scent she'd chosen carefully, now marking the pristine silk with a dark stain. Panic must have flooded through her. This dress, this irreplaceable, historically significant dress, now stained. What could she do? There was no time to fix it, no time to start over. So she made a choice. She held the fabric in a particular way as she walked, trying to hide the stain from cameras, from eyes, from history itself. A small deception. A tiny act of damage control that only she and perhaps a few attendants knew about. And there was more. After the wedding, when the dress was finally carefully removed, someone discovered a safety pin, still in the gown. A pin that had been accidentally left there during one of the last-minute alterations. Diana had worn it the entire day, This small, sharp piece of metal hidden in all that silk, and never knew it was there. It's almost funny, isn't it? This dress that cost thousands of pounds, that took months to create, that required code names and locked rooms and backup versions, and it had a safety pin left in it like a home sewing project. But perhaps that's the most human detail of all. Perfection is an illusion. Even on the most carefully planned day in modern royal history, there are safety pins and perfume stains and things that almost go wrong. The train presented its own challenges. 25 feet of silk taffeta, designed to flow majestically behind Diana as she walked. But the glass coach, the elegant fairy tale carriage that would transport her to St. Paul's Cathedral, was not quite large enough to accommodate all that fabric gracefully. The train became badly creased inside the coach, crumpled and folded in ways it was never meant to be. When Diana arrived at the cathedral and stepped out, her attendants rushed to smooth it, to spread it out properly on the cathedral steps, to make it look as though it had floated effortlessly from Clarence House to St. Paul's. The photographs show the train flowing perfectly behind her. What they don't show is the frantic smoothing, the quick hands, the relief when it finally fell into place. This is the truth behind every perfect image. Someone, somewhere, is smoothing out the creases just out of frame. Sink deeper into relaxation. Feel your body becoming heavy, comfortable, at peace, walking into history. The wedding was held at St. Paul's Cathedral, a choice that raised some eyebrows at the time. Traditionally, royal weddings took place at Westminster Abbey, but St. Paul's offered something Westminster couldn't: space, room for more guests, room for more spectacle, room for the enormous public procession that the royal family wanted. Around 600,000 people lined the streets of London that day. 600,000. Try to picture that number, not as a statistic, but as individual humans. People who woke up early, who travelled from across Britain and beyond, who stood for hours just to catch a glimpse of the coach passing by. Parents holding children on their shoulders. Elderly couples who remembered previous royal weddings. Teenagers waving Union Jacks. All of them part of this collective moment. And beyond London, beyond Britain, approximately 750 million people watched the ceremony live on television. 750 million. Nearly a billion human beings in homes and town squares and embassies around the world, all focused on the same moment. The same young woman in the same ivory dress. It was one of the most watched events in television history. Not a disaster, not a war, a wedding. To make such an event possible, to keep everyone safe, over 4,000 police officers were deployed, 2,000 military personnel. Streets were closed, routes secured, every possible threat assessed and prepared for. Dozens of cameras captured every angle. Experimental long-range lenses tested the boundaries of what was technically possible at the time. The ceremony was staged not just for the people in the cathedral, but for the invisible audience of hundreds of millions. Every camera position carefully chosen, every shot planned. This was not just a wedding. This was a television event, a global broadcast, a piece of theatre performed in real time for an audience that spanned continents. For Diana, Walking into St. Paul's meant walking into something far larger than herself. The private young woman was about to dissolve into the public symbol. The individual would become the icon, and she knew it. Every step she took up that cathedral aisle, she knew that the world was watching, that she would never be quite the same person again. Let these vast numbers wash over you like waves. Don't try to grasp them, just feel their gentle rhythm, cracks in the ceremony. Even with all the rehearsals, all the preparation, all the careful coaching, there were mistakes. During her vows, Diana mixed up Charles's names. He is Charles Philip Arthur George. But in the moment, under unimaginable pressure, with the eyes of the world upon her, Diana stumbled. The names came out in the wrong order, and Charles made his own mistake. When promising to share his worldly goods with Diana, he said, "thy goods," instead of "all my worldly goods." A small slip. A momentary lapse in the precisely scripted language of the ceremony. These were tiny human errors, the kind of mistakes anyone might make under stress. But because this was a royal wedding, because every word was being broadcast to hundreds of millions, these small stumbles became recorded forever. Part of history, part of the story. Some people found the mistakes charming, proof that even in such formal, scripted circumstances, real humans were present, real nerves, real vulnerability. Others worried about what the mistakes might mean. Were they signs of something, omens, or just the inevitable result of putting two people under that much pressure? At their request, the word obey was removed from Diana's vows. This was controversial, traditional, expected. For centuries, royal brides had promised to obey their husbands. But Diana and Charles quietly insisted on this change. It was a small rebellion, a minor adjustment to the script, but in the context of royal tradition, it meant something. It suggested a different kind of partnership, a more modern marriage. Whether that promise was kept is another story entirely. After the service, Diana worried intensely about making the correct curtsy to the Queen. Not just worried, intensely worried. The curtsy had to be perfect, deep enough to show proper respect, graceful enough to maintain dignity, timed exactly right. This is what royal life required. Even in your happiest moments, even on your wedding day, you had to remember the protocol, the hierarchy, the unspoken rules about who bowed to whom and when and how deeply. Diana managed it. The curtsy was correct. The Queen nodded. The moment passed, but imagine carrying that additional weight, not just the physical weight of the dress, but the mental weight of remembering every rule, every expectation, every tiny gesture that could be interpreted as wrong. Your breathing is slow and steady. Your thoughts are soft and distant. Let yourself float. Details most people missed. Here are the small treasures hidden in the corners of this grand event. The details that photographers didn't capture. The moments that only a handful of people witnessed or knew about. 2 identical bridal bouquets were made for Diana. 2. The one she carried contained gardenias, stephanotis, odontoglossum orchid, lily of the valley, Earl Mountbatten roses, freesia, veronica, ivy, myrtle, and trade scansia. A carefully chosen collection of flowers, each with its own meaning, its own tradition. But why 2 bouquets? So that After the ceremony, one could be rushed by police motorcycle escort to Westminster Abbey, where it would be placed on the tomb of the unknown warrior. This was a tradition started by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, who had laid her bouquet there on her own wedding day in honor of her brother who died in World War I. Diana's bouquet, vibrant and fresh from the wedding, was carried at high speed through London and placed with ceremony on that tomb. A moment of remembrance woven into a day of celebration. The wedding ring that Charles slipped onto Diana's finger came from a very specific source. It was crafted from rare Welsh gold, taken from a particular seam in a Welsh mine that had been reserved exclusively for royal brides. This wasn't just any gold. This was gold with provenance, with history, with meaning. The same gold had been used for the wedding rings of the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Margaret, and Princess Anne. Diana's ring connected her to these women, making her part of an intimate chain of royal wives. During the ceremony, one small moment of genuine warmth broke through the formality. A 5-year-old bridesmaid, nervous and overwhelmed by the spectacle, tripped and fell. She began to cry, frightened and embarrassed in front of all those people, all those cameras. Diana noticed, in the midst of everything, her own nerves, the weight of the dress, the watching world, she noticed this little girl in distress. She stopped, knelt down despite the 20-pound gown, and comforted the child. She spoke to her gently, made a small joke, helped her stand, dried her tears. It was a brief moment, easily missed in the grand sweep of the ceremony, but it revealed something essential about Diana, her instinct to comfort, her awareness of others, even when she had every reason to be focused entirely on herself. The people who created Diana's dress received an unusual gift after the wedding. The Emanuels and members of their dressmaking team were each given tiny china boxes. Inside each box were silkworm cocoons, the actual cocoons that had produced the silk for the wedding gown. Imagine holding that in your hand. Not just a souvenir, but the very source of the fabric. The beginning of the thread that became the silk that became the dress that made history. A gift that said, you were part of something that will be remembered. These small details are like stars in a vast sky. You don't need to count them all. Just let their light reach you softly after the vows. Of the 3,500 guests who attended the ceremony at St. Paul's Cathedral, only 120 were invited to the wedding breakfast at Buckingham Palace. 3,500 people witnessed the vows, but only 120 were considered close enough, important enough to share the meal that followed. This is how royal life worked, circles within circles. The public ceremony for the nation and the world, the semi-private reception for dignitaries and family, and then, at the center, the smallest circle of all, the people who truly knew the bride and groom. The menu for the wedding breakfast had been specially created for the occasion. Among the dishes served was Suprême de Volaille, Princesse de Galles, Supreme of Chicken, Princess of Wales. Diana's new title, transformed into French cuisine. Her identity now something that could be eaten, consumed, incorporated into the formal language of state dinners and royal celebrations. And then there was the cake, or rather, the cakes, plural. 27 wedding cakes in total. 27 seems excessive until you understand the purpose. These cakes would be sent to various organizations, military regiments, and charities associated with the royal family. They would be displayed, photographed, carefully cut, and served to people who wanted to feel connected to this historic event. But even with 27 cakes, there was insurance. A fully identical spare cake was made in case of disaster. In case one of the main cakes fell or was damaged or somehow became unusable, the spare waited quietly, never needed, never cut, a contingency plan baked into edible form. Some slices of wedding cake were carefully wrapped and preserved. Years later, decades later, these slices would appear at auctions, still wrapped in their original packaging, still bearing the royal insignia. People would bid hundreds, even thousands of pounds for a piece of 40-year-old cake. Not to eat, of course, but to own, to hold a physical fragment of that day. What does it mean to preserve cake for 40 years? To treat dessert as a historical artifact? It speaks to the way this wedding transcended the personal and became public property. Even the food was not just food. It was memory made physical. History you could theoretically taste, though no one ever would. Feel yourself drifting now, like a boat on a calm lake. The shore is distant. The water is smooth. You are safe and floating, the image that defined everything. Charles did not kiss Diana during the wedding service. This was traditional, expected. Royal weddings did not include kisses during the ceremony itself. That level of public affection was considered inappropriate, too intimate for such a formal occasion. So they said their vows, exchanged their rings, signed the register, and processed back down the aisle as husband and wife, all without a kiss. But the British public, primed by decades of romantic films and modern expectations, wanted their fairy tale moment. They wanted to see the prince kiss his princess. And so, when Charles and Diana appeared on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, the crowd began to chant, "Kiss, kiss, kiss." This was not planned, not rehearsed, not part of the official program. But the crowd's will was clear, and Charles and Diana, perhaps swept up in the moment, perhaps understanding that this was what history required of them, leaned toward each other, and they kissed. It was their first public kiss, ever. Not during the ceremony, not in a formal photograph, but there, on the balcony, in front of the crowd and the cameras and the watching world. The image was captured, reproduced worldwide, printed in newspapers across every continent. It became the defining photograph of the day, perhaps the defining photograph of their entire relationship. A young couple, newly married, sharing a kiss on a palace balcony. The fairy tale crystallized in a single moment. But here's what makes this image complicated. By the time that photograph was taken, private tensions already existed. The bracelet for Camilla, the too brief courtship, the nagging doubts, the stress-induced weight loss. All of it was already there, hidden beneath the silk and the ceremony and the perfect kiss. The image showed the world what it wanted to see. A love story, a beginning, a happy ever after. But images, no matter how powerful, are not the whole truth. They are moments frozen in time, carefully framed, showing only what fits within the borders of the photograph. The kiss on the balcony was real. The crowd's joy was real. The historical moment was real. But so was everything that came before and after. The doubt and the duty, the public spectacle and the private sorrow, the fairy tale and the fragile reality beneath it. Epilogue. The weight of the dress. We began with a dress. Let us end with it too. 20 pounds of silk, 25 feet of train, antique lace and mother-of-pearl sequins, a backup dress that was never worn, a safety pin accidentally left inside, a perfume stain carefully hidden. The dress carried weight far beyond its physical mass. It carried expectation, history, the dreams of millions of people who wanted to believe in fairy tales, the hopes of a young woman who wanted to believe she was making the right choice. After the wedding, the dress was carefully preserved, stored away from light and air, protected, maintained. It would eventually go on display, allowing new generations to see it, to marvel at the craftsmanship, to imagine what it must have felt like to wear it. But no one would ever wear it again. It belongs to history now, to that single day in July 1981 when a girl became a princess, and the world watched, and the cameras recorded everything, and the truth was already more complicated than the story being told. Diana walked down the aisle in that dress. She said her vows, mixed up the names, curtsied to the Queen, held hands with Charles, and kissed him on the balcony. She did all of this while carrying weight we can measure, 20 pounds of fabric, and weight we cannot. The pressure of a nation's expectations, the knowledge that she was marrying into a situation already complicated by old loves and new roles, and the suffocating protocols of royal life. She did it anyway, with grace, with mistakes, with humanity showing through the cracks in the perfection. And in doing so, she became unforgettable. The story ends here, but your rest continues. Let these images fade like sunset colors. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body sink into complete comfort. The young woman in the ivory dress has walked down the aisle and into history. The crowds have cheered. The cameras have stopped rolling. The day has ended. And you, dear listener, can let it all go now. Let the facts drift away. Let the names and numbers dissolve. Let yourself sink into the peaceful darkness of sleep. There is nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to hold on to. Just the gentle rhythm of your breathing, in and out, slow and steady, carrying you deeper into rest. The wedding is over. The story is told. The world spins quietly on, and you can sleep. Sleep now. Sleep